Dear ladies and gentlemen, so-called believers and unbelieving kuffar, we have put up 211 chapters so far of 261 videos investigating, referencing and commenting on almost every facet of Muhammad's character, his Quran, his Sunnah, and his legacy to his followers and the world. We have based our chapters entirely upon the Muhammadan records themselves, in the Arabic language of the Quran, Hadiths, and the books of their exegetes. Nonetheless, as all our listeners already know from reading the comments, we are invariably accused by the followers of Muhammad of lying, deceiving, misinterpreting, misquoting, misrepresenting, or taking out of context each and every verse that we recite from their own scripture. Other followers of Muhammad use the violence of language against us to substitute for the physical violence that they would have rather inflicted upon us. To ignore the subject being discussed, they invariably use the diversionary tactic of either attacking the veracity of the Bible or changing the subject at hand to a completely different and unrelated one. Ladies and gentlemen, please be aware that while they continue attacking our chapters, not once, I repeat, not once, have they actually demonstrated anything we say as lies, deception, misrepresentation, or fraud, thus unintentionally supporting the fact that our statements and conclusions are true. Since those who are commenting on our chapters are educated people who have instant access to information, the question that this chapter is addressing is, why are they attacking the messenger, that is the one who is reciting the chapters, with such anger and hate, if he is not lying? What is he revealing that the followers of Muhammad find so offensive and unacceptable if his revelations are coming only from their own scripture? Why do they not point out where, when, and how the messenger is being untruthful or misleading the listeners? It should be very easy for them, after all, they who presumably know their scripture well, to instantly point out these alleged misrepresentations or deceptions. Why do they always beat around the bush instead of addressing the subject at hand? Why do they always quote from the Bible verses that allegedly prove it to be bloody and racist, while at the same time they assert that this very same Bible had been corrupted by the Jews and Christians? When we ask them where, when, and how the Bible was corrupted, their insipid and utterly contemptible answer is, we know it is corrupted. We tell them, all right, let us assume you are correct, and that the Bible had been corrupted. Then you must have the uncorrupted version upon which you make your assertions. They come back with, all the original uncorrupted Bibles were destroyed by the Jews and Christians. There are none left. Once more we ask them the simple and logical question, if all the original uncorrupted Bibles were destroyed by the Christians and the Jews, then why on earth are you quoting from these current corrupted Bibles? Since they are corrupted, then they are not relevant to the discussion and the subject of Muhammad's Quran and should not be brought to the debate. Hence, using the Muhammadan's own arguments, pointing out errors or other negative characteristics in the current corrupted Bible is utterly stupid. Even when we tell the Muhammadans that we are willing to ignore the Bible, but concentrate on the subject of Muhammad's Quran, they make a 360-degree turn and go back to the same cycle of moronic arguments. Moreover, and even more damning, is the fact that the followers of the Shia sect accuse us of using corrupted Sunni hadiths, and the Sunnis accuse the Shia of unbelief because they do not follow the Sunnah of Muhammad, but incline more towards Ali bin Abi Talib, Muhammad's nephew and son-in-law. Hence, even when we use their own what they call sahih, meaning true hadith, we are still accused of lying. It is obvious that simple logic cannot be achieved by the totally indoctrinated believing followers of Muhammad. They are always right, and everybody else, the other human beings of Ummah al-Kuffar, are always wrong. Being in denial of all facts and reality allows the followers of Muhammad to keep what little is left of their sanity intact to survive with. The followers of Muhammad attack the messenger of this series because they are shocked, humiliated, and outraged to realize that they have been brainwashed to submit to a lifelong lie, that they have been led to believe in one of the most insidious and gigantic intellectual and theological deceptions that have ever been perpetrated upon the human consciousness in recorded history, the cult belief system of Muhammadan Islam. They attack the messenger of this series with abusive gutter-like language and with unsubstantiated allegations as a substitute, since in fact and reality they are attacking the hate-mongering, war-mongering, racist and perverted text of Muhammad's Quran and or the hadith that reveal the depravities of Muhammad, his Quran and his Sunnah. They are, as usual, victimizing the messenger while conveniently, deliberately and necessarily ignoring the message that he is revealing to a mostly ignorant humanity. I would like now to recite some of the irrefutable conclusions that have been derived at based entirely on the Muhammadan records in the Arabic language of the Quran, Hadith, and their scripture. These conclusions completely and utterly destroy the myths and false propaganda of Muhammadan Muslims and their apologists among the politically correct academia, media, politicians, and clergy. That Allah is most definitely not the same as the God of Abraham, Moses, or Jesus. Allah is actually only the name of the supreme pagan god of the Arabs. That Abraham and Ishmael were never in Arabia or had anything to do with building the foundations of a pagan shrine called the Kaaba. That Islam does not mean peace, but means only submission. That is, submission to the will of one God. That jihad is not a spiritual struggle for bettering the Muhammadan Muslims to attain a higher spirituality, but on the contrary, it is a state of eternal warfare against all human beings who do not believe in Allah and in Muhammad as his messenger. That jihad is an unremitting war that was declared unilaterally by Muhammad 1400 years ago, and whose followers continue as I am speaking against 80% of humanity, the so-called unbelieving kuffar, all Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, Jews, animists, and others. That Muhammad was not a prophet, let alone the last one. Nowhere in the Quran is there a prophecy or a miracle of his, nor any reference to a prophecy or a miracle. All the alleged miracles and or prophecies that are mentioned in the hadith were concocted by the thousands during the 300 years after his death in 632 AD. That Muhammadan Islam is not a religion, but actually the cult of Muhammad, since his followers must emulate his sunnah, that is, his deeds, his thoughts, his lusts and his hatreds, his actions and his instructions to the letter. This is, by and of itself, cultism. That it is inconceivable that any merciful and compassionate divinity could have ever revealed the hate-mongering, war-mongering, discriminatory, joyless, stupid, and racist verses that fill Muhammad's Quran. How can any God be merciful and compassionate when he deliberately predestines most of humanity, allegedly his own creation, to go to hell as unbelieving kuffars through no fault of their own, since they had and have no choice in the matter? The Quran asserts that Allah yudhillu man yasha wa yahdi man yasha, meaning Allah misguides whom he pleases and rightly guides whom he pleases. Where are the morality, justice, mercy, compassion, and godliness of such an action? Predestination actually negates the need for religion, for prophets, and for Satan, making Muhammad utterly redundant as a messenger of anyone or anything. That no omniscient God could have revealed to Muhammad all the grammatical, historical, and biblical errors, as well as the abrogating and abrogated verses that fill Muhammad's Quran. As we have concluded and asserted, based entirely upon all the records that we have available, every letter, word, verse, ayah, and chapter surah of the Quran are actually the secretions of Muhammad's imagination, his own alter ego, but cleverly projected into the unsuspecting mouth of Allah to give them sanctity. That the Quran is essentially Muhammad's own autobiography, since most verses revolve about Muhammad's persona, his wives, his companions, and his deeds. In summation, Muhammad, Allah, Gabriel, and Satan are all one and the same, Muhammad himself, thus making the Quran totally human and ungodly.